Hello, my name is Andrey.ermoshin. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm going to tell you about my method. It's called Psychocatalysis. What is it? It facilitates the processes which should have been going on in the body, but which for some reason have been delayed. So, let me try and explain how it all works. It is actually a way of active regulation of state, a self-regulation method. Let's discuss a little about what our life experience is. What does it consist of? We could say it consists in meetings or encounters of something which we are sometimes ready to face, but sometimes we're not. So, what happens to us if we're not ready at all to encounter something? If there is no answer in our consciousness, in our head, so to speak, where does the impact of a search for a solution go? It goes to the deeper layers of the psyche. These are called the autonomic nervous system or the vegetative nervous system. Our most ancient survival strategies are written in it. They are to attack, to run, to hide. And so it happens that in those stressful situations which are perceived by our minds as unexpected and extreme, some kind of computer system breakdown occurs, and our emergency response system turns on. Let's exemplify it. Let's ask, how do phobias develop? It happens more or less like this. A girl is in an elevator. She expects it to go up to a certain floor. The lights would be on, and her family would be there to meet her. But when she enters the elevator, the sensors didn't recognize her because of her slight build. The lights went off, there was silence, and nothing else happened. Any grown-up understands there are about 53 ways of how to act if you're in an elevator. Call your parents, knock on the door, or just stay where you are. Someone's going to call the elevator. People have never been left inside for a long time. What happens to a person who is not ready for a situation like this, which isn't actually so dreadful? I mean, really, there's nothing frightening in it. The person feels lost and feels like, well, like a hatch has opened on top of the head, and it begins to literally suck in all the possible horror, that they will find only your dead body, that you will never get out. At that moment, you can take anything into your head. Where does it all go? Not to the brain cortex or to the upper conscience, but it ends up falling into the very depths of the body. That's how people describe it. You experience systems of phobias, a kind of tension in the gut, and then, after everything is over, you think, well, right, nobody has been left alone in the elevator. It's all right now, and it's clear how to act in the future. But what really happens? Having been frightened, a person stays in this state of mind. I would call it sensibilization. In other words, an oversensitivity to certain issues, and it becomes a curse for this person. Where's the stumbling block here? It's in this ancient primordial response, isn't it? It should have been salvational, shouldn't it? The problem is that it's designed to be single-use. There's a steering wheel in a car. You can steer, drive anywhere, even to the most, let's say, distant points. And you have your safety airbag. And in our mind, there is also a steering system like this, which is stable and calm when it's in the normal working state. And there are also such one-use contours which can be activated. And what happens then? They don't go off automatically, just like the airbag that doesn't go back to its place by itself. I could give dozens of such examples when a person is confused for some time, and at that moment contours like that appear as tension, and those primordial survival strategies get switched on. What happens to them? As I explained before, they become stabilized. And what next? The person accumulates them. Finally, at a certain stage, he is shattered by all that and is out of energy without knowing why. Why does he or she experience health failure? Why is he or she so unlucky? Well, the accumulation has taken place, a common accumulation of tension which was not worked out as life went on, and here we need a special method of work. Okay, I've already started to draw an analogy to a car, so I'll continue with that. For instance, there are car maintenance works. The car should be driving. I mean, it shouldn't have to remain in the service centre all the time. And still, service centres exist. So one of the essential parts of human service is to restore the normal, working state to take the person out of the stressful, traumatised state of mind. Because what actually are phobias? A kind of trauma. The person was struck by certain information and it has descended deep into his mind. How to take it all out? Now I'm going to explain it. Because in future, I hope to pay more attention in my videos to the topic of phobias, panic attacks, and other trauma-related states. Now I'm going to tell you about the method. It's good for us that there is not only the possibility to infect the deep layers of our consciousness by some traumatic information, but also to heal them. The key here is not the knowledge, which is very important by itself, because we all would like to have a rational view of things, but also the feeling. The feeling isn't used by other systems in the working process as widely as in psychocatalysis. What does the feeling give us? The possibility to immediately recognize how exactly the trauma had developed. Well, the trauma developed, but how did it happen? That's on the one hand, and on the other hand, figuratively, where did it reach? Where did it penetrate? And in what form? It may seem unusual for you to ask, what shape did this information take? What shape does this information exist in? That's because we're used to thinking that information is something ephemeral, but actually it is always stored in some kind of media. If we decide, for instance, to move the data from drive C to drive D, it is still there in the form of a certain file. And in our work, we can also find this file. But what to do next? We have to determine its fate consciously, because as I said before, it cannot get solved unconsciously. So, a human being is a medium for spontaneously developed states, which sometimes turn out to be his curse. And with the help of the feelings, we can reach those inclusions in our mind which have involuntarily fallen inside without invitation, so to speak. If we talk about phobias, what can we find? Having closed one's eyes, one can notice that in the solar plexus zone there is some kind of weird impregnation, some nasty powder. Some darkness has got inside, and there's a round lump. What should we do about it? It's not enough just to groan or say, "Look, wow, I can get that frightened." It doesn't work. As I've already said, it's not enough to recognize the problem, and so our inner feelings lead us to these. Let's say structures, and it's interesting to note what also happens at that point, that our self-regulation, supported by reason, switches on. And this darkness which has got inside the body can start to go outside. And as it got in some weird way, it will go out, just like this, in the shape of a whirl or smoke going up a shaft, or a tornado. The hatch on top of the head will be open again, in the place where the information penetrated the body, and that's it, the smoke is gone. Only a minute or two have passed, and you feel that you've woken up from being bewitched, and now you are free from the spell. It seems that it's almost a miracle. Though in psychocatalysis, this miracle, if it is not cranked out, has become a technique. Well, what are miracles in psychotherapy? What do they consist of? It's when the state seems to be at a dead end, and we only did a very simple thing, and the patient suddenly felt liberated from the problem. Maybe I will sound immodest, but I'm sure that psychocatalysis is a system which makes miracles a technique. In other words, it shows how miracles happen. They happen with the help of attention which is drawn to the affected areas and through conscious decisions about what got into our mind or about what we need to invite there to make it stronger. I'll tell you more about it in my subsequent videos. Thank you for your attention. It was just a brief introduction. I hope we will meet again. See you soon.